The Power Rangers, always known for working as a team to fight off some of the wackiest villains ever seen on TV. Of course, ever since the beginning of the franchise, one of the driving forces of the toy line behind it was to offer the entire team of Rangers in action figure form. Usually the Rangers would be sold separately and have to be collected one by one to form the whole team, but this didn't mean that there weren't options for multi-full team packs. These sort of options were not something invented by Bandai America during the Neo-Saban Era, but by that time they sort of followed a tradition on how they released them. This was the annual team packs, usually released as a Toys R Us exclusive in the US, from Samurai to Super Ninja Steel. For the most part, these packs would take 6 figures from the main action figure toy line and sell them together in one set. For most of the seasons, this was a great option that made collecting the toy line easier, as the figures included were the same as the ones released at individual retail, with no changes to the accessories included or any of the details on the figures. However, where this method didn't work so well was with seasons like Megaforce, as instead of the 2 packs released during the season's run, including all of the cards included with the individual figure releases, Bandai opted to include only 1 card per set. And what was worse is that this was an exclusive card only found in the team pack, meaning completionists of the action card game would need to buy both versions of the figure releases. By the time the Super Megaforce sets came around, a new tactic was introduced with the Legendary Team Pack, the inclusion of an exclusive weapon that could only be attained in the set. For this set, it was the Super Mega Cannon, and this idea would continue for every single team pack released by Bandai America until they lost the Power Rangers toy license in 2018. But that wasn't the only change that happened to make these sets more incentivizing. With the final Dino Supercharged set release in 2016, Bandai included an entire exclusive figure for the first time in the set, instead of a weapon, this being the Dino Armor X version of the Black Ranger, one of the few Ranger forms that the already unexpectedly comprehensive Dino Charge figure line didn't get to at that point. This idea was also present in the subject of today's video, in the final Bandai team pack released in this fashion, the Epic Hero set for Super Ninja Steel, released in the summer of 2018. Now normally this set would have been a Toys R Us exclusive in the US. However, when this set was first found being sold in Canada during the summer of 2018, that was right when the final Toys R Us stores were closing down in the US. And with Bandai having just recently lost the toy license, the fate of the set actually getting a release here was in question. Eventually the set was made available online and can still be bought for close to original retail all these years later on Amazon, which is where mine came from, as my parents bought it for me as a birthday gift last month. Okay, so here it is, the Epic Hero set from Super Ninja Steel. So yeah, it's very interesting that I just randomly have this now. Basically, I've had this on my wish list for a couple of years because I never got any of the figures in this line. I got a very small amount of Ninja Steel figures. It was definitely the season I got the least amount of. The only ones that I ever got was red, because of just being a Red Ranger, which I do have right here on screen right now. So I do have the original Red Ranger figure from the Ninja Steel line, and then I got Ninja Steel Blue to go with my Ninja Steel, or my Dino Charge Blue, so I could have both of the Sodarso brothers. But I didn't get any other Ninja Steel figures besides this. And like I was talking about in the kind of history portion at the beginning of this video, this is kind of an important set in Power Rangers toy history, because it is the final team pack released by Bandai America, and it comes with an exclusive figure right there, which I do want. I've always liked the variations of the Daka Ninja suit that we had from the Ninja, and the fact that it's a Kelson Henderson character, which you can barely see because of the glare, is pretty cool as well, so I'm very happy to have that. And I'm just kind of happy to have all of these figures, which you can barely see because this set just attracts glare like crazy. But what's also cool about this too is that the Lionfire Armor, which we have 3 figures of in here, just recently made a cameo appearance in one of the most recent comic issues for Mighty Morphin. So it's really cool how we're still tying in the lore with older seasons and everything like that. And I've always liked the Chozetsu power-up. I think it looks the best on red. I think that it was very ambitious or interesting that Toei decided to give blue, gold, and yellow, who never got a figure here in the US for whatever reason, gave them upgrades as well. So it's also kind of funny that we did get a figure of this. We got Lionfire Gold, but we never got the actual power-up, the actual power-up that was exclusive to him, the super form, which is very funny to me. And we have Galvanax and a Scolatron, which I think is his name, which is, pretty cool. I think they're not as painted as well as they could have been, but I think Bandai did a really good job with villain figure sculpting. So I'm happy to have those, I'm happy to have these, I'm happy to have Mick. It's just a fun set. So also I like this too, is that this is the only one of these team packs that ever got released in the final variation of Power Rangers packaging that Bandai was going through. So this is actually kind of in the whole 25th anniversary kind of packaging, where it's sort of minimalistic, and I have like these little silhouettes of the characters that they include, and you have that kind of black aesthetic and everything. I thought these were really cool when they came out back then, and I am happy to have a team pack in this format. And here on the back, we can actually see everybody, actual pictures of it from the show. So we have the Skull-Gator, I called it a Skullatron earlier. We have a Skull-Gator, we have Galvanax, Lionfire Armor Red, Armor Blue, Armor Gold, and Red Ranger. So Mick's form doesn't give any special name. I guess I just also clarify it as a Ninja Steel Red. Now, I'm happy to have these figures. I know that blue and gold are not 100% accurate with the whole symbol, the whole color of the armor down there. I don't know why Bandai America decided to still paint those gold and blue on those. We'll talk about what I mean by that when we open them up here. But I'm going to go and open these up and just take a brief look at all these guys, because, this is a 4-year-old set that I'm sure not a lot of people care about. But I figured I got this for my birthday last month, and I wanted to do a video on it because I do think it's rather cool. So here's all the contents of the Epic Hero sets out of the box, and you know what? I would actually say this is pretty epic. Of course, these are not the greatest figures ever made, but honestly, Bandai's action figure line, especially in the Neo-Saban era from Samurai all the way through Super Ninja Steel, was pretty good. Like, especially towards the end when they, starting with Super Mega Force, when they upgraded to like the 5-inch figures, this line is usually pretty sweet. Now, obviously it has some shortcomings, it has some inaccuracies. The villains always kind of were cheaped out with the paint, but they never really cheaped out with the sculpting. And I'm going to kind of just take a look at all these figures somewhat briefly, kind of show off articulation and detail and everything. So like the Skull-Gator here looks awesome. Like, these are the giant monsters that they would summon, sometimes fight by the Megazord whenever they didn't necessarily have, the Monster of the Week grow or whatever. And like, I love the sculpting of all of the skulls all over him. He's definitely fitting of his name. And I think pretty much all he would really need is kind of like a black wash to kind of just bring out some of the details. He kind of just looks a little plain, kind of just like a sand color basically at this current rate. But he does have a leg articulation, which I think is very surprising. No knee bends or anything like that, but you can get him to do a little bit of posing. His arms don't move out or anything like that, but they do rotate, even though the giant shoulder pads get in the way of that, and they bend at the elbows, but no hand articulation, no head articulation or anything like that. He just comes with this weapon, which is like, I guess like an axe or something, or like some kind of sword. It does look really cool. It almost kind of looks like a pirate sword or something with the skull and the crossbones and everything. There's like this hole in there. I think that's just for the mold, because I don't know what else it would be there for. But overall, the Skull-Gator is pretty sweet. They just, did a really good job of capturing all of that sculpting molded detail in there. And so I definitely like this to fight, even though he's supposed to kind of fight a Megazord, you could have him fight a ground-sized Ranger. I don't see why that would be a problem. And then we have our main villain of Season 1. We have Galvanax here, which looks really good, but obviously definitely could use some more paint. You do have very nice sculpting on the shoulder pads and everything like that, which you do kind of get out of the way. Even though his arm doesn't move out or anything like that, it does. They're also attached to the arm, I believe, so you can still get like a very nice rotation out of his arm, which is very nicely appreciated. And you do get a head articulation, which is great, and you get actually pretty good leg movement. He has knees, so that's pretty cool. So, yeah, pretty good movement on him. And you get this big staff weapon and everything like that. And yeah, like I said, basically I just feel like he could use more paint on the shoulder pads and on his overall figure. I think most of the villain figures in the Bandai lines could just really have benefited from like a black wash or something to kind of just really bring out that sculpted detail, because it's there. It just kind of gets lost in the whole, just generic plastic colors. But I still think Galvanax, especially just from like, a head view here, like that looks pretty great. And if you wanted to paint these up yourself or something like that, you could have a pretty sweet Galvanax figure on your hands here. And then I never got the Matamodius figure from Season 2 to kind of have like the main Season 2 villain, but I'll take what I can get with that. That's still good enough. And then we have 3 of essentially the same figure, which is the Lionfire Armor, which I think Red's turned out the best here, which makes sense. He's kind of the default user of this armor anyway, but yeah, it looks pretty good. I don't really have any like loose joints on this one or anything like that. Sometimes the Bandai figures would be a little loose at times, but for the most part, this turned out pretty great. I love the sculpting, like texture pattern on the shoulders. You have it on the arms as well, and on the legs too. Like it turned out really good. He's definitely very barren in the back, but he doesn't really need to have anything. I don't know what this peg is there for. I think there were certain attachments and stuff in the toy line. I know that the sword, though, does have a little square peg there that can peg in to his back, which is pretty nice. I do like the look of that being kind of holstered back there, so that is cool. And he got pretty typical Ranger articulation, so, you can move him out, bend there at the elbows. The hands are on like little, not ball joints, but like little pin pegs. No ball joint in the head, it just rotates around, but you still had pretty good articulation with these guys for the 5-inch figures. You can kind of get them into some pretty good poses if he wants to balance there, which I don't think he will, but oh, there he goes. So you can get some pretty good poses out of these guys. And since, red is the default of the armor, I think that his figure definitely turned out to the best of these guys, since, it is the default one. The other ones are not bad. We got blue, we got gold, which I think only happened like one episode each, maybe more than once for these, but I know that these were very limited appearances compared to red, and we never got one for yellow, even though yellow did also use this. And then I think white and pink, used it. I know they used it in a Ninja stage show. I think one of them used it in one of the comics, but I don't remember exactly which one. Now, it's not accurate here on, though, unfortunately. The symbol being blue instead of red is accurate, but that gold armor piece that's like right there, right below the Ninja logo, is supposed to be gold on everybody, but they painted it the color of the Ranger, which doesn't look bad. It's just not necessarily show accurate. It should be blue symbol, but not blue gold band there. You kind of get away with it on gold himself because it kind of just blends in with gold anyway, but you can tell it's painted to be the shade of gold as the figure than compared to how it should be. I also don't remember if their knee pads changed color when blue and gold used it, but they did here on the Bandai figure, which is fine. And of course the helmet is remolded, everything else is just repainted, essentially, so that's to be expected, honestly, because it's pretty much just a reuse of the red figure, which is perfectly fine. I wouldn't expect anything else. And the head does look great, though. So they did give it a nice new helmet. The sword is the same, though, on blue as it is on red. But gold kind of has the biggest change because they painted his arms blue, which I also don't remember if that's accurate. It might be. But I know that the gold here should be kind of that orangish gold color that we see on red, and not the gold that we see right here for the symbol. That should be gold. And then you do have the nice head for him there, which looks pretty good. And of course he has his sword instead of like the typical Ninja Steel sword, which also does have a peg on there, so you can also put that on his back. And you got gold boots there, so basically he just has a lot of the blue like his typical suit does. So his definitely kind of looks the most different because of that, because you have all the black being replaced by blue. And I definitely do like how this turned out between, just kind of giving them some variations. And then, of course, here's kind of the star of the set. We have Kelson Henderson's Mick, which looks really, really good. I'm happy that we got at least one variation of this. We didn't get the other variation, which is, of course, like the Red Ranger's father. However, I guess it kind of makes sense because that would have required them to remold the chest to be a different symbol. This one, all they had to do was paint the black silver, so it was a very simple thing for them to do. We can compare it to the original release of Ninja Steel Red. You can tell it's the exact same figure, they just painted it silver, and they were able to promote it as an exclusive figure, which, yeah, it is, but obviously it was just a very simple thing for them to have done, because, that way we can get a Mick figure, but they don't have to do much to do it. We do get what they call an exclusive weapon out of this, which is basically just a red version. It's, I guess, kind of technically the sword from Season 2 that was red instead of black, so you kind of have an exclusive weapon there, so which is supposed to just kind of be his sword, which doesn't really like to stay in my... Okay, it doesn't really like to stay in my figure's hands that well. But yeah, Mick turned out pretty good, and I would say is a pretty good driving force for the set, but really only if you don't have any of these. If you have any of these, it's not really worth it to buy it just for Mick. But if you do want it, and you do want some kind of representation in Mick, or, an official Kelson Henderson Ranger, because SPD Orange is like, a Dream Sequence one, this is a pretty good set for you. Overall, I miss these types of figure sets. They still happen to some extent under the Hasbro era, as Beast Morphers did get a release that featured the core team with the villain figure Evox, and essentially the entire Grid Battle Force arsenal that had been released throughout the toy line of figures, but it did lack all of the MorphX keys that the standalone releases had. Dino Fury has also infamously received a team pack that locked the normal versions of the Green and Black Rangers to it, essentially making it a necessity to buy and not as much of the fun convenience that they used to be during the Bandai era, as well as all being online exclusives now. And that's going to do it for today's video review. If you guys would like to pick up this set, even though it is years old, you actually still can get it on Amazon for less than $50, which is like less than $10 a figure. So I will be leaving a link to that in the description below. And of course, until next time, if you guys would like to follow me on Twitter, you can at LivingRangerKey or at LightningFigPR. And I'll see you all next time.